Self-love is the new sexy, the podcast devoted to helping you overcome life's most painful and stubborn challenges so you can feel great, have more energy, and live stress-free every day. To reach your full potential, simply work with the powerful spiritual principles that are readily accessible to everyone. It's easier than you think, and on today's show, W. Mark Watts is going to show you how starting with self-love is the key to joyously and harmoniously making that happen.
Hey everybody, it's W. Mark Watts. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me for another episode of Self-Love is the New Sexy. And today's topic is going to be very, very near and dear to my heart because I'm going to give you a real live, up-to-date example of why I do this podcast and what it means to me and a good example. And hopefully you'll see at the end of this how you can start to use these principles or increase the use of these principles in your own life. So stick with me for a few minutes. So I like to give real life examples from my life, especially when they're up to date, up to the minute, because hopefully you'll start to see a similarity or start to see some things in your life that mimic what I'm going through, which will make it easier and give you instant opportunities to apply some of the things that I'm talking about so that you can hopefully get the results that we all want. So as I'm recording this, it is late February, and I have one son who just turned 18 last month in January. So we have an 18-year-old who's about to enroll in college next year. And needless to say, our senior year has been somewhat of a task. And what I mean by that is my son, who is an athlete and will be going to play football next year in college, tends to have an affinity for marijuana. And the state that we're in, it's illegal to use marijuana. Now, I know for a lot of young folks who might be listening to this podcast or what have you, that doesn't mean a whole lot to them because nowadays it seems to be so socially acceptable amongst many people that it's okay to use marijuana. Now, I'm myself is someone that's never used any drugs in my entire life, and I been an athlete my whole life as well. Now, aside from alcohol, but any other drugs, especially illegal drugs, I've never ever used and been 100% against them. And needless to say, my namesake and my one and only son, I had hoped we'd never have to have this instance where we are right now. And so as a result of, well, maybe not as a result of, but in addition to his marijuana use, he tends to have more of a disdain for school. Even though he does well in school, he tends to no longer feel the need for certain classes. And he started to consistently become late and or skip certain classes during his school day. And no matter what we've done, no matter the conversations we've had, no matter how his mom and I have attempted to approach this and help and question and be open for conversation, nothing, and I mean nothing, has seemed to work. So I can tell you that even though I practice so much spirituality and self-love, that indeed this is one that had me shaken for a while. And it's because you can see that this type of behavior is not only good in the present moment, but it can also lead to other things. And it can lead to him making mistakes and things happening that sometimes can be irreversible and lead to a lot of heartache and potential tragedy, that it on and on and on. So many things that we as parents want to protect our kids from and try to shield them from. And it's very difficult when you feel, at a loss, when you feel that nothing you've done has worked and you try to be there, but they just continue to do what they want to do. And so it's gotten to the point where I was really ready to throw up my hands because I had no more answers. and I was really tired of talking and nothing was working. I've taken his car from him and I still have it right now. So we got to a point where I just finally said, the only other thing I know to do is to actually get counseling, seek professional help with this problem, with this issue. And maybe hopefully he'll be open and receptive to it. And maybe this will help us. So that's what we've done. So I set it all up, and he and his mom were on board. And so right now, I think we're into our third week. As a matter of fact, third time of the day that I'm recording this. And we're just going to see how it works. And the thing that I'm really proud of is, number one, that he's willing to accept some help and go through the process and talk with the counselors. But the other thing is the process that I had to go through, because, for several months there, I was just really upset and distraught and, mad and, whatever other emotion you can attach to it. And I ultimately had to say, hey, man, you've got tools. You don't have to choose to feel this way, because what you've got to remember is at the end of the day, he is going to be okay regardless of what happens. And you are going to be okay regardless of what happens. And most importantly, you've got to maintain who you are. You've got to get back into and stay in that high vibration, that happy place. So whatever it takes for you to do that is what you have to do. Because right now you're focusing on all the negative things. You're focusing on all the bad things that could happen, what he's not doing, when there are a lot of things that he has accomplished, who he is as a person. It's a lot of things on a daily basis that he does well and does correctly and does, in a positive way, in a way that will affect his life positively. So you've got to get back in balance yourself. And as you get back in balance, as I told you in earlier episodes, everything else tends to get back in balance as well. So I slowly but surely started to find my happy place, and started in all situations. And in reference to this whole situation, I've really come to realize that, everything will be fine. And regardless of the outcome, I need to still be happy and love myself anyway. Because let's say worst case scenario, let's say something bad happens. And I've spent all this time feeling bad and being mad and upset and treating him some kind of certain way. And then something bad happens anyway. Who benefits from that? No one benefits from me loving myself less. But I benefit from loving myself more. And I know that it benefits him as well, because I'm in a totally different mindset when it comes to being able to communicate with him, how I think about him, and my efforts and energy toward him. He can feel that. And so I believe that 100%. So I move right back into loving myself in regards to my relationship with my son and the things and decisions that he's making. And I tell you, I feel like a big weight is lifted, and it's, a beautiful place to be.
We hope you're enjoying today's show. If so, please take a moment to show your support for the show by leaving us a 5-star rating and review on iTunes. If you have questions for W. Mark Watts, please feel free to contact him over at wmarkwatts.com, on Instagram at wmarkwatts, or on Facebook at Self Love is the New Sexy.
So how does this relate to you in any situation that you may be going through? Because if you're listening to my podcast, and the chances are there are some areas of your life that you want to improve and that you're looking for some clues and some answers to that. So what I would suggest that you do, what I want you to try is a very simple exercise, just as I did. Now, the one that I mentioned to you that's going on in my life right now is a big one for me. So I would suggest that maybe you don't try starting with the biggest thing in your life right now and trying to put that into a better, higher self-love position. what I would suggest is maybe you start with something smaller. So if you have that big thing in your life, let's say you want to switch professions, but you're not sure which profession it is, or you know which one it is, but you're having trouble switching into that. Maybe you need the time to get the training you need, or maybe the opportunities. Maybe you don't know anyone in that field. So let's say that's the big one. What I want you to do is just start to look at it differently and start to feel differently about that particular situation. So instead of focusing on the fact that you don't have it, or you don't have the skills, or you don't know anyone, start to really reframe the thought process and start to imagine that everything will work its way out and that you will eventually have that position or something better. And again, if that is the biggest issue in your life right now, it might not be the best one to start with. Start with something smaller that you don't have as much emotion built around, that you can start to really love more what is happening with you right now. Matt Kahn talks about, he has a book that's called Whatever Arises, Love That. So I'll say it again, Whatever Arises, Love That. And that's a beautiful title, and it's spot on once you understand the whole process and the thoughts behind it. But essentially, it's this: everything that happens in your life, especially when it's something that can be viewed as negative, what if it is the greatest opportunity that you've ever had? So anything that is challenging in your life right now, what if it's the greatest opportunity that you've ever come across? So I want you to just think about anything that challenges you in your life. And I had to really look at it that way with regards to my son. I said, man, this is actually a huge opportunity for me. Not only for me to view him differently, but to really prove to myself that I can keep that high vibration, that I can continue to love myself. And I should, in fact, continue to love myself, even though there's something going on that I disagree with. And that's just the way it has to be if you truly want to love yourself, be in that happy space, have the joy, live a life of bliss where things don't affect you. Because the longer and the more that you practice this, the less and less things can affect you and things have a hold. Now, it's okay to feel however you want to feel about any given situation, whether it be directly in your life or in someone else's life that you're aware of. However, again, I want you to always remember, and I'm going to talk about this, you're going to hear me say this over and over again. The gig is for you to build and maintain your own happiness. Love yourself so much that each and every day your cup is full, so that when you need to pour out, you've got excess to give, as opposed to really taking away what's in your cup. Your overflow is just flooding humanity, flooding the world with all the love that we have in us to spread and to share. Because it's just all an energy, receiving and giving. We're just constantly bouncing energy back and forth. So just give it a shot. Any situation in your life that you want to change, start loving that situation, looking at it from a different angle, and asking the question, what if this particular situation is my greatest opportunity to grow, to learn, to do something different, to make a different choice? So just consider that, play with that thought, see how it goes. If you want to leave me a comment, drop me a line, please feel free to do that. That's all I have for today, and I look forward to talking with you all on the very next episode. Take care.
You've been listening to Self-Love is the New Sexy with W. Mark Watts. If you enjoyed today's show, be sure to tell a friend. Also, make sure you never miss an episode by subscribing to our show on Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, or wherever you listen to podcasts.